Hello all. So this is part 2 to my week 15 video on publishing because it cut off at the end. Yay, I love technology. So I was talking about comps, and so what I was saying was that it's really important to read widely in modern literature so that you can say that your writing style is like Alice Hoffman. I just finished reading Alice Hoffman's The Museum of Extraordinary Things. It's a really good book. But what's helpful about saying something like that is that she is a contemporary writer with a contemporary writing style, something that a publisher or an agent can picture, knowing what kind of work you write and what kind of work they are by extension representing. The side benefit to something like that is that almost all modern novels have an acknowledgement section where they thank their agents and their editors and their publishers. So if you think that you write like somebody like Alice Hoffman, then you would go to the acknowledgements page on Alice Hoffman's book and you would look for her agent or her editor. And then you would query that agent and you would say, hey, I saw your acknowledgement in Alice Hoffman's book, and that is hugely impressive to agents. On some level, they like to be flattered. I know it sounds vain, but at the same time, they're in it for the business of it. They're not in it for the writing. That's what your job is. But also, they love really good, true art, and they're interested in people who are making an investment, like a time investment, or the expression is skin in the game, right? Where they want to make sure that you are willing to put in everything that you possibly can. And that includes your time, not just your money. And so, so they want to see who your comps are. It doesn't mean anything to them if you were to say something like, I write like Nathaniel Hawthorne. They're like, wow, great, you wrote 200 years ago, right? Like, they're not interested in that so much. They're interested in modern people who sell modern books, because the sales for something like The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne aren't really accurate to the writing of it. People buy that book because, I mean, I'm sure there are people who buy it for the beauty of the literature. I'm not saying that it's not a great book, because, I mean, I teach it. It's a great book. But you know as well as I that plenty of people buy that book either because they have to for school, or so that they can put it on their bookshelf and look like, I've read something of classic literature before, right? The numbers don't really quite explain sales like somebody buying Alice Hoffman's book would be, or somebody buying, try not to think of a really popular person. Let me look at my bookshelf actually now that it's right here. Lisa C. is a great example. She's a best-selling novelist, so, I mean, you have to be very careful of the best-selling ones, because you don't want to be like, well, I'm J.K. Rowling. Oh, I'm Neil Gaiman. I am a best-selling novelist in waiting. You know, like, they don't want to see your overconfidence. They want to see what your writing is like. I think Lisa C. is pretty safe, because even though she is a best-selling novelist, she has a very unique way of writing, and I think she speaks to a lot of they call it chick lit, but like women readers. I feel like chick lit is kind of almost a derogatory term for that kind of readership, but that's what they call it. So the whole point of comps is for you to be able to approach an agent and say, this is what I'm interested in, this is the kind of writing I do. My book will sit on the shelf comfortably beside Lisa C. or Alice Hoffman, or who else? Tara Eisen, right? I mean, these are people who are everyday writers who are not, mega bestsellers like James Patterson, right? Who pretty accurately depict who you are as a writer as well. Agents are not interested in one-book wonders. They're interested in people who want a writing career, who will write lots of novels, who will work with them, who will work with readers. So to some degree, they're interested in a social media presence. I wouldn't put too much stock in it. It's more like idly posting pictures on Instagram, like, this is what I'm reading today. What are you reading? Stuff like that. I like to, tear a page out of Nathan Fillion's book. I feel like that's kind of what publishers are looking for, kind of like smart and quippy pictures every once in a while, but not like posting every day, because as agents like to say, they're interested in people who are writing books, not who are spending all of their time on social media writing crap that'll never be published. So don't put too much stock in this like obsession with social media. That was like so 10 years ago. I'm just kidding. No, but it really was. So yeah, you're approaching an agent, you're saying this is what I'm looking for, and then when it comes to the editors, trust the agent, right? Like, they're the people who know all of these other people. They're the ones who are going to make all of the tough choices. But like in Alice Hoffman's book, right? If I read an acknowledgments page that included both the agent and the editor, later down the road, after we've already signed a contract, they could say something like, hey, maybe we can approach that editor, so-and-so. So that's a reason to do it. Now, the reason a lot of people don't like to go with a big publishing house is for the following reasons. They have no control in the product. After you're so you have an agent. Let's say you're accepted at, say, Random House. Once Random House buys your book, that editor really truly has to fight for it. They go to a board meeting where at the board meeting they say, this is the book I'd really like to represent. And then as a team of editors, they discuss whether this is something they really want to fight for or not. At that board meeting, the board decides whether it's a product that is publishable. And sometimes that means edits. In fact, usually that means edits. So then let's say Random House says, yes, we want your book. Then they tell the editor, yes, we'll take this book, but these things need to be fixed. So then the editor tells the agent, who then tells you. Which is another reason that a lot of people don't like working with the publisher, because it's so-and-so told so-and-so told so-and-so. It feels like a game of telephone. But once the agent tells you what needs to happen in your book, you sit down, you work on the edits. They give you like 3 months to do them. You pump out your edits, you send them back, and then they do a little tweaking from there. The vast rewriting sections are not copy editing. Copy editing is a whole nother process further down the line. Just as I tell you with your revisions, work on the rewriting first, the sections that need to be revisited, and then the line editing, the copy editing can happen a lot later. Also with a big publisher, as far as like this process where you're kind of distant from it, once you do those couple of edits, you send off the book. It's 2 years before your book is published, which sounds like a long time. Most of the time it's done in like a year and a half. But the reason it takes so long is because they have to print them, for one. But they also have to copy edit. Everybody at the publisher has to agree on a title. Most of the time you don't get to pick your own title. Then it goes to the marketing department where they fix a cover for it. A lot of people would really like to have some say in their cover. I personally couldn't care less. The way I see it, these are the people who know marketing. These are the people for whom this is a livelihood. It's not just their business, but they're making a living off of it. They know what covers will sell or not. So I tend to trust them at this stage. I mean, part of it too is I'm so smitten by the book process that I'm not picky at all about the cover. It's just the wrapping, But some people really would like to have say in that. So, I suppose there's a way through your contract and your agent where you can write in final say on the cover, but that's a pretty atypical offering, so something to think about. I'm trying to see if I've said all the details. Now, so that seems like most of those primary milestones in traditional publishing. The nice thing with traditional publishing is that your book is returnable. They print it depends on which imprint of the publisher buys it, but typically they'll 300 copies of your book. 300 really doesn't sound like a lot, but they send 1 or 2 copies to every bookstore, every corporate bookstore in the whole country. It's a pretty cool idea. then that's returnable, so that when copies don't sell, not if, I'm sorry to break it to you, but when copies don't sell, then they can send them back to the warehouse. That's when they'll, they become bargain books and that kind of thing. But hey, your book's out there. Now, we are under this, like, some kind of magical illusion where you become a published writer. People stop you at Safeway for your autograph, and you leave Safeway and climb into your Ferrari and drive down the street. And it's not like that. Don't go into publishing for the money. Don't go into publishing for the money. Almost every successful writer has to have some other job too. Stephen King, I think, is the only exception, and even then, Stephen King is writing so much for other publications, and he's doing editorial work, and he's taking in freelance writing on top of it. So very, very few people can publish and not have another job. Usually the people who don't have another job are people who have, a trust fund, or people whose spouse is wealthy, or people who are retired and they are living on their previous income, that kind of thing. So that said, your publisher is not going to treat you like a celebrity either. They're not going to arrange a book tour for you. They're not going to arrange book signings for you. All of that stuff you have to do yourself. And it's really simple. You call a bookstore and you say, my name is such and such. I wrote such and such. I'm going to be in town. I would love to arrange to do a book signing. And so sometimes they'll have you do a reading and a signing, but more often than not, it's just a signing. And the signings can be fun. They can be awkward. I did a book signing once in Phoenix, at a bookstore in Phoenix, where a woman approached me and knew nothing about what my book was about, and proceeded to tell me that I need to read the Cat Who mystery books because, wow, they're so good, and I would really benefit from adding a talking cat into my novels. And I was like, are you for real right now? It was a very weird moment. So book signings are weird things. Bookstores naturally attract all kinds of people. And, I mean, that's good and that's bad. I mean, it's an interesting moment, certainly. I mean, it's something you'll never forget. I mean, that happened like 15 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. So, yeah, good times. So, publishing is fun, guys. But don't do it for the money. Understand what you want out of publishing. That's probably my best advice to you. If you want to publish for you, and if you want to publish for your friends, self-publishing is not so bad. If you want to publish because you want to throw your net out into a wider pool of fish, then I would try traditional publishing. There's nothing wrong with traditional publishing. I feel like in a lot of small towns, we kind of treat bigger publishers like they're these big bad people who are kind of out to get us, who are just, capitalizing on our product and who are manipulating us for our money. And I'm not saying that there aren't publishers out like that, but I don't think that they're all, they're not all bad guys with curly mustaches and pointy shoes, I think that there's a lot to offer out there. I think you just have to go out and get it. So keep up with the writing, keep up with the copy editing. Several of you, I made copy editing marks in your revisions, stuff like, always tab, every time a new line starts, whether it's dialogue or a paragraph. Always indent, always tab over. Stuff like headings and headers. Guys, you may not believe me, but publishers care about that. Publishers care that your manuscript is in Times New Roman, 12-point font, double-spaced. Your heading is on the front, and the heading in this case would include your address and your word count, and that your header is on there. So for a couple of you have some issues with some headers, figure it out, fix those issues, because publishers want to see in the header your last name / the title of the book / page number. They need that. So, the way I like to tell people, don't give publishers an excuse to not read your book. And often it's the nuts and boltsy formatting, things like that are the biggest issues. So, Always read a publisher's guidelines. They might be different. Maybe somebody wants it in Courier instead of Times New Roman. Maybe somebody wants, a variation in the heading. Maybe it's a contest and they don't want your name on it at all. That would be possible too. So, I think all of you are very capable of publishing, and I don't just say that. So please consider publishing with a big publisher, mostly because I feel like the self-publishing world expects way more left-brained, technical, business sense. Go out and get them. Not that you guys aren't capable of doing that, but I feel like the publishing model is one that has worked for a really long time and is continuing to work, which I love saying, because when I was at Barnes & Noble several years ago now, they projected the death of the book in 5 years. And now we're 7 years later. And hardcover books are selling more than ebooks again, which is very exciting. So, hey, they're going to need people to represent. So, think about it. All right, all. Thanks for all of your hard work in my class.